Repeat what you said, what you saw online.
So there's this doctor that was explaining how genetically black women are older than white women are.
Mm-hmm.
Because so on the tip of our of people's chromosomes, there's the tip of it. I, it's like that's the part that ages your genes.
Mm-hmm.
And with black women, ours, it's developed where it shows up as 7.5 years older than white women's. So
Mm-hmm.
that was just it's really weird. And it's caused by trauma.
It's caused by trauma.
Yeah.
So like the trauma.
Oh, just like everyday stuff.
Wait. So are they saying that black females are born that way?
Yes, we've evolved to
So
be
it's
older
like
than that.
a generational.
Mhm. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yep.
And so
Awesome.
so
Great.
you being 15 years old,
Wait, how old would that be? Oh,
like, so what do you
that would be
yeah,
22.
so you're really like 22. So but what does that how does that make you feel? Like, what do you think about that, being a young black woman and knowing this?
It's kind of uncomfortable, I guess.
Uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, it's only weird because like it was brought up. Cause like all the stuff that we talk about,
Mhm.
it just seems normal. Like
What
how like with diseases, like I don't, cause it's like our
you said it
emotions,
seems what I'm sorry, what seems normal?
just like how we are, I guess. Cause like it's not really like a thing that you're conscious about. That like you're naturally older. It's
Mhm.
just how it is. If that makes sense. Like we're just different than white women at this age. We don't act the same. We just it's like maturity or like in our
Because we have a
features.
different reality, and
Yeah,
it's
but it's
something that
weird.
has caused us to change,
The first part
or
didn't make too much sense. But like, so you know how like when we're
on
out,
a cellular level.
yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah. But so you know how like how we're out and like people are like, oh, like you look like this age.
Mhm.
And then if it was like some if it was with a white girl that was that was the same age that I am, it was like, oh, you look 15. But then someone would be like, oh, you look like in your 20s. No, I'm still a teenager. I'm a child. I don't. That's not what that is. So I don't.
But
I
what
don't
you were
know.
saying too, though, is not that it's not simply like a physical change, like you look older. It's that your body inside.
And you also just you think older. I guess like you're not worried about the same things that
Mhm.
other people are.
And then you say something about it also causes black women to get
Uh,
diseases that
mm,
normally older people get or something.
yeah. So I guess like the first thing that would come up with like diabetes. I guess
Mhm.
how that's like so rampant. Usually that wouldn't like when you think about like diabetes, like you get that at an older age,
Mhm.
but it it's starting to happen to like kids, like to like children and stuff like that. So I assume that that probably has with our diet and stuff like that that also plays a big part in it because it's still like a genetic thing where you have well,
Well,
where you're
yeah,
kind of
there's a
weaker,
couple of
I
different types
guess.
of diabetes. Just type 1 and type 2.
Yeah.
Type 1 is something, it doesn't have to do with like sugar intake or diet.
Yeah, we learned
And
about
that's,
that
yeah.
in health class. Yeah, it's just it's weird. Or
Yeah.
even like cancer and things like that.
So, you knowing this at 15, do you think it will cause you to be more conscious of like stressors, not just dieting and things like that, but also stressors and learning a different way to deal with, trauma and stress and things of that nature. And I wonder if it would even help. Well, I'm sure it would help mentally, if anything, but
Um, that there's a reason for it, because it's kind of confusing to be like, why am I like reacting this way to certain things?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it's good to know that it's like that there's like a reason why, but I don't really know if it like helps.
Well, like you can learn different coping mechanisms. You can learn just something as simple as writing down your thoughts and your feelings. Big ups to mommy trying to push you to journal. But no, but like I told you recently, I like journaling because it really does for me being a writer, whatever. Um, it's very cathartic, and so writing down, getting those things out of me onto paper, even if you burn the paper later on and whatever, you still took it out of yourself. So, but I mean, but there are lots of different types of coping mechanisms, ways to cope with, pain, emotional pain, mental pain, traumas, stressors, um, even like intergenerational things. I don't know about on the cellular level,
Yeah.
but
Well, I don't, because I think like with that, I think that's like, cause like most of the things that stress us out, like more like a general thing, like a general like with like most black women, and that's more of like a social kind of issue that stresses us out so much. So I don't know if that's like entirely on us to do, because
well,
like
yeah,
like
no,
coping with it, or like how like earlier how we were talking about like with the gym and stuff like that. Like that's not. I don't really know if we can do too much about that. That's on them to do. I don't know if we can fix that. That's just them being weird, or like people putting that on us and them being like, okay, you have to fix this. That's not how that works. Yes, I'm stressed out about it, but you have to fix yourself so that don't have to be so worried about it all the time. So it's just, it's gross.
So again, I'm gonna
So
ask you, how does that make you feel being a young woman to know that now? I think that on some levels there are things that black people can do, like within our own
Oh,
communities. We shouldn't have to, our elders shouldn't have to be worried about being outside and being mugged or whatever. We
yeah,
women shouldn't have to worry about being raped. A lot of stuff that happens to us happens within the community. And even though, you know, there can be an argument of like, well, we learned this because of slavery and this and that and that and this. But I mean, we can say the same things for white folks. Like they learned the same stuff.
It too.
You know,
It's not.
they learned how to be oppressors, and we learned how to be oppressed. And then in turn, we throw that oppression onto others, whatever. So there are some things that we can do within our own communities and within our own households. But overall, I get what you're saying, and I agree that about social things going on. But again, with you being a black woman, oh my baby, I know
Huh? What?
you being a young black woman.
That's weird.
So, like, what do you think about that?
Um,
Like, how does that make you feel? Does it frighten you? Does it encourage you to make changes because you're such a
well, now
political
it
buff?
encourages me, but before it did scare me a little bit because it was weird. Like it was just like I didn't like want to think about it too much. I just wanted to do kid stuff, but you can't too much. It's like it's just too much stuff for you to be like, eh. So yeah, it encouraged me, but it's also kind of uncomfortable because it's like it's kind of a little bit too early for that. Like I'm just trying to watch funny videos, not think about that. I don't know what that is. So yeah.
I'm gonna tell you. Also, I don't know how much you think about this. I really hope not too much because
Oh, what is it?
what access to childhood and child things that you do have, I would love for you to like hold on to those things. But I will say, being a black woman and then being a black mother, ugh, it's so stressful because just trying to, you have to teach these things to your children. So where this conversation started is you mentioned something about, what did you say
Oh,
about how a
um,
lot of people say it's hard to talk to your children
oh
about
yeah,
race, and
I
you
saw
were
this
like,
TikTok about
is
it.
it?
I saw this TikTok where this one she was saying where that like oftentimes like the new conversation is like about race and
Hmm.
how people are kind of like confused on how to talk about it, which is understandable. But people usually use like the thing of it's hard to talk about it, especially with kids.
Hmm.
But then her argument was that it's not really that hard because like the 6-year-old boy who is being charged for taking tulip, um,
Mm.
and then how there's a bunch of other kids who are black but then are who have to talk about it because you can't just like you can't not do that because something terrible could happen if you don't talk about it, you don't acknowledge it. So
Hmm.
she was more or less saying like yeah, it's hard for other kids,
Right.
not for
It's
us because you
hard if
have
it's
to.
not something that you have to talk about.
But it was more so like kids who are not of color because everyone else it's like you know about it.
And then too, I guess they want to sugarcoat it or like childproof it or whatever you want to
Yeah,
call it.
you
It's
can't
like,
do that.
well, how can we talk about this and not scare them? Okay, that's wonderful if that's your reality. However, we've always talked about race in our household.
Yeah.
Is a reality. Now, I would say in my mother's household, we never really talked about race. When I was little, I'm sure I told you this before, I must have been about 5 years old or something. And mommy told me, she started talking, because we came through the Nation of Islam. Mommy was with the NOI. And so she told me about the whole, how black people are the original black people of the earth and stuff like that. And, how the creator, how Allah favors the original people and things like that.
Oh, that.
And the whole Asiatic black man and all that kind of thing. And that was it. Like, we didn't talk about stuff like that. Mommy always, we never talked about Islam very much. She just led by example. And, it was a different time back then too, but there's much more access
Yeah.
to
It's a little bit too much.
Qurans and all, right? Like all this
Too
kind
much
of stuff
stuff.
nowadays, right? And of course you have Google. But so we never really talked about it in mommy's house. Now in granddaddy's house, where all the aunties and uncles were, and everybody walking around light skinned and everything, we still, race was still a thing because now, and this is crazy because they all had the same mother and father, right? But they would like call each other white cracker and stuff like that as the
We
diss
do
or
that.
kind of that kind of
We do that.
thing.
It's fine. It's normal.
But so race was like mentioned or touched upon, but it was in a negative form, and it was like negative towards ourselves, though we didn't realize it. And well, I won't say ourselves because I was young, I was really little, but I would catch this from the aunties and uncles, and so really it shows you how being in a black neighborhood, how the colorism, even though we were
Yeah.
all high yellow in the house, it was like,
How it affects you.
right, and we
later on.
still looked at ourselves as like that kind of self-hate, but that's a
Uh,
whole other video.
it really is.
But I say that to say race is something that all the black people I know, now granted, most of the black people I know are like conscious, quote, air quotes, but so we all talking about race has never been an issue, and it's something that always exists in the household. And big ups to Africa and all that kind of thing has always been very real. And also we always teach our children about racism, because once you leave from our homes, we almost have no control of the situation.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, you would be very bad at parenting if you did not
Yeah.
prepare your children for such things. And so when people say it's hard to talk about racism, I'm just like, really? Like, it's a reality. It's something that's real. Just like I would teach you about, not eating too much sugar or, whatever.
It's unhealthy for you.
Right. Or, putting on a jacket because it's chilly outside.
Yeah.
I would teach you about race. And not just black to white or, vice versa. But also with the whole colorism thing. It is all a reality. So we have to talk about it. Why would you not? But, so going back to what I was going to say when we, came back to the whole race thing, how we began with this, is that being a black woman and being a black mother is so difficult because you want your children to have a childhood and have a sense of safety. But again, you can't. You have to teach them. You have to teach your child when they get older how to be if a cop stops them while they're walking or in a car or whatever.
Yeah.
These are the things that you do, or you know what I mean? So it's just I understand how we pass these things on generationally.
Yeah. Especially if people don't talk about it,
Mhm.
because although it's gonna still affect you and your whoever your offspring, but if you hold it in, you just yeah, it happened, don't talk about it. That's gonna make it worse.
Which is what that's what they
Yeah.
used to do in past generations. They didn't
you
talk about
have to
stuff.
Talk about it, because you not saying anything and just being yeah, it happens, that's it. It's gonna make your kids feel like they're not that they're imagining, or that what they're feeling is not right. That what you're feeling is fine. It's you talking about it just kind of evens it out. Well, it's still gonna happen, but just bonding with your kid and being yes, I know how you feel. It's fine. Just you can work this out. That would help a lot more. Just saying nothing.
I'm remembering there was another time that great grandma Elna, I didn't understand it because it wasn't a conversation. She just said it. And I was like, okay, But I remember her telling me that, because, great grandma Elna never used to go out after great granddaddy, the Reverend, after he passed away, she never left the house because he passed away in 1953. She promised him on his deathbed, this is the story in the family, that on his deathbed, he had her promise that she would always take care of his grandchildren. At the time, mommy was the only one. My mom was the only child. And I don't think Uncle Gus was born yet. And so she made that promise to him, and she took it to heart, honey. She never ever left the house. The only time she left the house, and she passed away in 1990.
No, could not do that.
Yeah, she never ever left the house, and she kept her promise to him. She took care the one son they had left, which was my granddad, and all of his children, and then the grandchildren, which I was very blessed to have had that time with her. But I remember being a child and she saying to me that she went to the Five and Dime, which was Woolworth, which was a department store down on Broad and Market in Newark. She said she went there and she was in line for the cashier, and the woman, I forget how she put it, but the cashier didn't take her. She called another woman up in front of her.
No.
And I don't remember if she said the word because she was brown or something like that. But I can remember her telling me, and it was just something random to me. I didn't know what the heck she meant about it until years later, of course. And I started learning about racism, and I'm like, hold up.
That's what that
So
was.
she meant, right, that's what that was about. Oh.
Yeah.
And so, when I asked Granddaddy, I would try to ask Granddaddy questions about stuff about the family and things. And he was like, look, when I was growing up, children were supposed to be seen and not heard. We didn't talk about stuff like that. Like, I don't know. Like, you just didn't know anything. And so it goes to where you were saying that oftentimes what happened within the black community, the native community, is that they just didn't talk about stuff.
And then it's like now
They
with
wanted to
us kids,
protect
like, if
the
we see
people.
something, I will fight you. I will fight you.
All right, your brother's back. Walaikum salam.